I've been able to see ghosts since I was a child. I can't speak to them, only watch. On our 5th wedding anniversary, I prepared a whole table of food and waited for my husband, Ethan, to come home. When I looked up, I saw his ghost. He was curled up in the corner of the living room, his face deathly pale and gray, staring at me intently. I felt like I'd fallen into an ice pit. Trembling, I reached for my phone, wanting to call him. Before I could dial, the door opened. Ethan walked in and hugged me gently, like always. Sorry, honey, I got held up at work. He held me in his arms. I heard his familiar heartbeat in my ear, warm and strong. I closed my eyes and told myself he's alive. But when I opened them again, the spirit in the corner was still there. My heart sank bit by bit. If Ethan was already dead, who was this person wearing his face and embracing me? I stared hard at Ethan's face. I've been looking at that face for 20 years. From childhood until we got married. He'd been by my side every single day. Now I was watching with my own eyes as a ghost with his exact face curled up in the corner. My whole body trembled. For a long time, I couldn't make a sound. Emma, what's wrong? He walked over and placed his hand on my forehead. Why are you sweating so much? Do you have a fever? His eyes were full of concern. His warm palm pressed against my forehead. I startled and stumbled back a step. The movement was too sudden and knocked over the glass on the table. Crash. Water spilled everywhere. He froze, his hands suspended in midair, looking at me helplessly with a trace of hurt in his eyes. Emma, what's wrong? I forcibly suppressed the panic in my heart. If the ghost in the corner was the real him, then who was this person? In front of me? I absolutely couldn't. Hit my hand. I took a deep breath and forced out a smile. Nothing, I said, trying to sound casual. Come eat. The food's getting cold. I sat down and picked up a piece of pork rib with my fork. He ladled me a bowl of soup and took out a bottle of red wine from the cabinet. I came home late today. Let me apologize. First, I looked at the dark red liquid in the glass and spoke as casually as I could. Do you remember that time we snuck liquor? I stared at his face. He paused for a moment, then smiled. How could I forget that day? You insisted on trying it. I couldn't stop. You got blackout drunk after 2 glasses. Then my hand, holding the fork, trembled slightly. Then you threw up all. I took you home, and your mom smelled the alcohol and thought I'd forced you to drink. She chewed me out. He shook his head. I didn't dare say you wanted to. Drink it yourself. I just took it. My heart tightened. Only the two of us knew about this. What were you wearing that day? I pressed on a white shirt. You threw up all over it. It took forever to wash clean. I smiled and ruffled my hair. Why are you suddenly asking about this? I lowered my eyes without answering. He even remembered this detail. I glanced at the ghost corner. He was still staring at me. My heart lifted again. No, this wasn't enough. I cleared my throat and looked back at him, speaking with slight embarrassment. Today Mom called and said she's craving the beef stew I make. He picked up a piece of pork rib for me. Okay, I'll make it tomorrow and take it to her. You'll make it. I looked up at him. He laughed. Haven't I always been the one who makes it? Back then you tried to learn how to make that dish and nearly set the kitchen on fire. I ended up learning it instead. I burned several blisters on my hands first time I made it. You used salt instead of sugar. After you tasted it, your whole face scrunched up, but you still stubbornly said it was good. I thought to myself, this wife of mine is really cute. You even lied to my mom and said you made it. He shook his head. Then my mom bragged about your cooking to the neighbors. I didn't dare expose you. Don't worry, I'll handle it. He patted the back of my hand. I said nothing more. All the details matched up perfectly, but the ghost was still there. Could my eyes really be playing tricks on me? Impossible. I've been able to see ghosts since childhood. I'd never been wrong about this before. After dinner, he put on an apron and went into the kitchen. I followed and leaned against the doorframe, observing him carefully, his movements, handling the ingredients, his technique, applying the seasonings, even his posture when sprinkling salt. Everything was exactly the same as years ago. The familiar aroma drifted from the kitchen. He turned back and smiled at me. Go sit down. It'll be ready soon. I didn't move. When the food was served, I tasted a bite. The flavor was identical. Is it good? He leaned over, his eyes bright as he looked at me. I nodded. Yes, same. Taste as always. He smiled and packed the beef into containers to put in the fridge. Then he took my hand. All right, it's been a long day. Let's go. Rest. I leaned into his embrace. His body temperature came through his clothes, his steady breathing brushing against my ear. Okay, I closed my eyes. Whether you're human or ghost, I will find out the truth. I followed him into the bedroom. The ghost in the corner followed us in too. I looked away, not daring to look again. Ethan made the bed and patted the pillow. Come lie down. You're tired today. Get some rest. Early, I lay down beside him. He reached over to turn off the light, leaving only a small nightlight by the bed. Emma. He turned on his side too. Look at me. You had something on your mind lately? No. I stared at the ceiling, just a bit tired from work. He held my hand. If you're tired, take a break. I'll take care of you. His palm was warm, his voice gentle. My throat tightened as I glanced again at that lonely spirit in the corner. Do you still remember this necklace? I picked up the necklace from the nightstand. He glanced at it and smiled. Of course I remember. I gave it to you for your 18th birthday. I saved up my allowance for 2 months to buy it. The shopkeeper said it was the last one, and I was afraid someone else would snatch it up. My heart clenched. He was right. Do you remember what you wrote on the note when you gave it to me? I continued, pressing. This necklace is for you. Happy birthday. His face reddened slightly. Actually, I wanted to write, I like you, but I didn't dare. How did I respond? You didn't. The next day you stuffed a box of chocolates in my desk. I was so happy. I didn't pay attention. In class all day, I closed my eyes. All correct. He took out the necklace and pointed to the words, waiting for you, engraved on it. I even cut my hand engraving this. He extended his index finger. There was a faint scar on the pad. Then, why haven't you worn this necklace all this time? My voice trembled. You said you couldn't bear to. That. You wanted to wait until our wedding day to wear it. I took a deep breath and put the necklace back on the nightstand, lying down as casually as I could. You have such a good memory. You remember things from so many years ago. He smiled and ruffled my hair. How could I forget anything about you? I lowered my eyes, but my heart felt like it had a thorn in it. He was right. He remembered everything. But how could I explain the ghost in the corner? I turned on my side. Since your memory is so good, I stared at him. Let me test you. Do you remember when we went swimming as kids? He thought for a moment. I remember the Pool was deep and you wanted to jump in without a float, and you almost suffocated. I pulled you out. You were so lame. I watched Ethan's face, nervously afraid to miss even the slightest expression. I was the one who almost suffocated back then. He was the one who saved me. If he went along with my version, he would be fake. He paused for a moment, then suddenly tapped my forehead with his finger. Are you dreaming? You were the one who almost suffocated. I pulled you out. You choked on water and cried for a long time. I opened my mouth, unable to refute. Do you remember our first time at the beach? He looked at me blankly. We've never been to the beach. Don't you remember? You always said you wanted to see the ocean, but we never had time. My whole body went cold. He was right. Again, I really had never been to the beach, just said I wanted to go. Also, I had a white cat when I was little named Snowball. My voice tightened, my tone becoming somewhat urgent. He frowned. You've never had a cat. When you were 12, you got scratched by a cat. So, you're afraid of them. You avoid them whenever you see one. I couldn't say another word. Every lie he could precisely identify. Sleep. Stop thinking. Nonsense. He pulled the blanket over and wrapped me in his arms. You've been acting weird today. I leaned against his chest and heard his heartbeat. I'm sorry, I said softly. Nothing. I closed my eyes. He turned over, habitually draping his arm over my waist, naturally pulling me into his embrace, exactly the same as before. I opened my eyes and locked gazes with a ghost in the corner. My mind was in chaos. Who should I believe? This went on for several days. I still had no clue, feeling like a stone was pressing on my heart until one morning Ethan was tying his tie. He glanced at me in the mirror. Didn't sleep well again last night. Yeah, I rubbed my eyes, looking exhausted. Had dreams all night. He turned around, fastened the last button, and walked over to sit on the edge of the bed. Emma, I need to tell you something. I booked a couple's trip to the Maldives before. I wanted to surprise you. He held my hand, but there's an emergency at the lab, and I can't get away. You go first, and I'll join you in 3 days. I froze. He'd never let me travel far alone before. Why so? Suddenly? You've been so tired lately. He smiled and ruffled my hair. Go relax. I'll fly over as soon as I finish up. My heart stirred. This was a good opportunity to test him. I nodded. Okay. He turned to pack my luggage. I followed and leaned against the door frame. He took out my favorite floral dress from the closet and folded it neatly. Then he stuffed sunscreen, a sun hat, common medications, and even the eye mask I usually used into the suitcase one by one. It's hot there. Pack more light clothes. Don't get too cold. Cover yourself at night. He chatted on without stopping. Your stomach isn't good. So I bought some crackers to put in your bag. Eat them if you get hungry. I watched his busy figure, my eyes getting a bit teary. He even remembered these details. Also, that book you said you wanted to read, I downloaded it to your tablet. You can read it on the plane if you get bored. He turned back and smiled at me. I lowered my eyes. The more meticulous he was, the more I felt like a jerk. Seeing me standing in the doorway. Without reacting, Ethan waved his hand in front of my face. All right, stop dawdling. He zipped up the suitcase. I'll take you to the airport. He came over, took my hand, and pulled me out the door. I looked back at the Spirit Inn, the corner, and noticed he didn't follow. I secretly breathed a sigh of relief. Good. It must just be my hallucination. My eyes must be the problem. All the way There, Ethan held my hand, chatting. Idly, I looked out the window, my mind in turmoil. The airport. He helped me check in and stuffed the boarding pass in my hand. Call me when you arrive. Okay? He hugged me, his chin resting on my shoulder. Have fun. I walked through security and looked back at him. He stood outside the glass door waving at me. My nose tingled. He was so good to me, yet I kept doubting him. I closed my eyes and made a secret vow. This is the last time. I'll never doubt him again. On the plane, I deliberately chose a window seat. After takeoff, I looked out the window. Still no ghost following. The weight on my heart finally lifted. I'd have to make time to get a medical checkup. After forcibly suppressing the lingering unease deep in my heart, I opened the book he downloaded for me to distract myself. After landing, I immediately turned on my phone and sent him a message. Arrived. Don't worry. He replied instantly. Have fun. Wait for me. I stared at the screen and smiled. The scenery in the Maldives was beautiful. I sent him photos every day. Beaches, sunsets, palm trees. He replied instantly to everyone, his tone as gentle as always. During our video call at night, he leaned back on the sofa in warm yellow light. Where did you go? Today. Diving. I said, lying on the bed. When are you coming? It's no fun. Here alone. Soon, soon, soon. He smiled. Didn't you always want to see the Maldives? Back in college, you said your honeymoon had to be here. I remembered. I froze. That was something I'd said casually in college. I'd almost forgotten it myself. You still remember? I told you. How could I forget anything about you? His eyes were bright. My nose tingled. He got up to pour water. The phone camera shook slightly. In that instant, I saw a blurry shadow standing in the hallway. Behind him, the ghost had appeared. Again, staring hard at Ethan with an unfriendly expression. My whole body went cold. Emma, what's wrong? He came back with a water glass. Bad signal. I forced out a smile. I'm tired today. I'm going to hang up. After hanging up, I opened the ticket app with trembling hands. The nearest flight was in 3 hours. Before boarding, I dialed his number. No answer. My heart sank hard. He never ignored my calls. It was early morning when I landed. I rushed home. The lights were off. He wasn't there. The ghost wasn't there either. I could only open my phone's location tracker and found he was at the hospital. I ran out like a madwoman. The hospital corridor was long, the lights blindingly white. The soles of my sneakers squeaked against the polished linoleum, a harsh, rhythmic sound that sliced through the heavy silence of the corridor. The smell of antiseptic and ozone clung to the back of my throat, sharp and metallic. I looked down at my phone, the blue GPS, representing the tracker I'd shared with Ethan years ago, just in case, pulsed steadily. It was pointing toward the end of the hallway, past the standard wards, behind a set of heavy double-paneled doors marked restricted access. Cognitive Research Division. My chest heaved. The air in the hospital felt thin, barely enough to fill my lungs. I pushed past the doors. No one stopped me. The reception desk in this wing was empty, a single monitor flickering with a blue screensaver that cast long, cold shadows across the floor. The trucker led me to room 408. The door had a small glass window. I stood before it, my hand hovering over the silver handle, trembling so violently that my fingernails tapped against the metal. I took a deep breath, braced myself, and looked inside. The room was bathed in the pale, sterile glow of medical monitors, a network of thin, transparent tubes and wires coiled like vines around. A hospital bed, and there, lying on the bed, was Ethan. He was gaunt. His cheeks were hollowed out, his skin a translucent, sickly gray that looked almost yellow under the fluorescent lights. His hair, usually so thick and neatly parted, was thin and dry. A ventilator mask was strapped to his face, fogging up with every slow, mechanical breath forced into his lungs. This was the face of the ghost I had seen curled in the corner of my living room. My knees buckled. I had to press my palm against the door frame to keep from collapsing. If this was Ethan, the physical, dying husk of the man I loved, then who had I been living with? Who had packed my bags? Who had held me in the dark and whispered that everything would be all right? Emma? A voice startled me from behind. I spun around, my heart hammering against my ribs. Standing there was Dr. Vance, Ethan's supervisor, at the neurological lab where he had worked for the last 7 years. Vance looked exhausted, dark circles bagged under his eyes, and his white lab coat was wrinkled and stained with coffee. I choked out, my voice sounding small, like dry paper scraping together. What is this? Why is Ethan here? What did you do to him? Vance sighed. A long, defeated sound. He looked at the door of room 408, then back at me. You weren't supposed to come back from the Maldives for another 3 days, Emma. Ethan, he went to great lengths to make sure you wouldn't be here for this. For what? I stepped closer, grabbing the lapels of his coat. My voice rose, cracking with hysteria. Who was at her house? Who was wearing his face? Tell me. Let's step into my office, Vance said. Quietly, his hand gently but firmly, guiding me away from the glass door. Please, I will explain everything. You deserve to know, even if we tried to spare you from it. The office was cluttered with medical journals, brain scans pinned to light boxes, and half-empty mugs of cold coffee. Vance shut the door, blocking out the steady, mocking beep of the heart monitors from the hallway. He pulled out a chair for me, but I remained standing, my hands clenched into fists at my sides. 3 months ago, Ethan was diagnosed with an aggressive, inoperable glioblastoma. Vance began, his voice flat, drained of emotion. He kept it from you. He didn't want you to watch him deteriorate. You know how he is, how he's always been. He spent his whole life trying to protect you from the dark parts of the world. My mind flashed back to our childhood, to the time he saved me from the pool, the time he took the blame for the stolen alcohol, the way he always stood between me and whatever threatened to hurt me. He was working on the synaptic transfer project. Vance continued, pointing to a series of complex brain diagrams on the wall. It was highly classified, funded by private medical tech firms. The goal is to map human consciousness, memories, personality traits, cognitive pathways, and transfer them into a biosynthetic neural network, a living, breathing replica printed from the donor's own DNA. I felt the room tilt. A clone? An advanced biosynthetic construct, Vance corrected softly. The technology is still in its infancy. The physical body, the vessel, takes months to grow in a specialized vat, but the memory mapping can only be done in the final stages of the donor's cognitive decline. Ethan volunteered. He knew he was dying, and he couldn't bear the thought of leaving you alone. He spent every night at the lab mapping his mind, transferring every memory, every secret, every tiny detail of his love for you into the construct. So the man who came home on our anniversary was the construct, Vance. said, "We initiated the transfer a week ago just as Ethan's physical brain began to fail. The construct has all of Ethan's memories, his habits, his warmth, his emotions. To him, he is Ethan. He doesn't even fully realize he's a synthetic. He just thinks he survived a scare at the lab. But why? I whispered, tears finally breaking free, scalding my cheeks. Why go through all this lie? Why not just tell me? Because the synthetic body is temporary, Emma. Vance said, his eyes filled with a heavy professional pity. The technology isn't perfect without a quantum entangled link to the original host's deep subcortical stem. The synthetics neural network begins to degrade. The real Ethan has been kept on life support in room 408 to stabilize the construct, but the original body's organs are failing. We have to turn off the life support tomorrow morning. The room went completely silent save for the hum of the air conditioning. Once we pull the plug, Vance whispered, the construct, the Ethan who is waiting for you at home, will begin to lose his cognitive functions. Within 72 hours, his mind will completely unravel. He will sleep, and he won't wake up. I stared at Vance, my chest tight, the horror of the realization wash over me. Ethan planned the Maldives trip, Vance said, so you would be thousands of miles away when his physical body died and when the synthetic body quietly disappeared or suffered a simulated fatal accident. He wanted you to remember him happy, healthy, and loving. He wanted to spare you the agony of watching him die twice. But you came back. I didn't say another word. I turned on my heel and ran. I drove back to our house in a daze, the street lights blurring into long streaks of silver and gold through my tear-filled eyes. When I unlocked the front door, the house was dark. The familiar scent of cedarwood and lavender greeted me, the scent of Ethan. I stepped into the living room. The was there. He was still curled in the corner, but he wasn't looking at the wall anymore. He was looking at me. His pale, translucent face was twisted in a look of profound, agonizing sorrow. Because I could see ghosts, I had always known they were just residual energy, silent echoes of the dead trapped in the places they loved or feared. But looking at this ghost now, I realized something different. This wasn't just an echo. This was Ethan's actual soul, detached from his dying, brain-dead body at the hospital, yet unable to move on because a part of him, his memories, his mind, was still tethered to the earth, walking around in a body that wasn't his. Emma? A soft voice broke the silence. I looked toward the hallway. Ethan, the living, warm Ethan, stood there. He was wearing his gray sweatpants and a soft t-shirt. He looked tired, his eyes slightly bloodshot, but when he saw me, his face lit up with that familiar, heart-melting smile. Honey, you're back. Why didn't you call me from the airport? He rushed forward, wrapping his arms around me. His embrace was warm. I could hear his heartbeat steady and strong against my ear. It felt so real. It felt like the man I had loved for 20 years. But when I looked over his shoulder, I saw the ghost in the corner rise to his feet. The ghost took a step toward us, his hand reaching out, his finger stopping just inches from my back, unable to touch me. The ghost's eyes were filled with a desperate, silent plea. I am here. The ghost's silent gaze seemed to say, I am the one who loved you. I stood, frozen, caught between two versions of the same man, one made of flesh and memories, destined to fade in days. The other a silent, suffering soul, trapped by his own desperate attempt to protect me. Emma, you're shaking the living, Ethan said, pulling back slightly to look at my face. his hands gently cupped my cheeks, his thumbs wiping away my tears. What's wrong? Did something happen on the flight? I looked into his eyes. They were the exact same shade of deep brown I had stared into since we were children. The warmth in them was genuine. He didn't know he was a copy. He didn't know he was a clock winding down to its final tick. He only knew that he loved me and that I was crying. Nothing. I lied, my voice trembling. I forced a smile, though it felt like my face was cracking. I missed you. Too much. I couldn't stay in the Maldives without you. Ethan's eyes softened, a look of pure relief washing over his face. He pulled me close again, burying his face in my hair. I missed you too, Emma. So much. Over his shoulder, the ghost of the real Ethan slowly lowered his hand. He didn't look angry anymore. He just looked incredibly, profoundly tired. He sat down on the floor, leaning his head against the wall, watching us with a quiet, heartbreaking resignation. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed, tucked into the crook of the living Ethan's arm. His breathing was deep and even, his body radiating a comforting heat. But in the far corner of our bedroom, near the closet, the ghost of Ethan sat on the floor, his knees pulled to his chest. For 20 years, I had kept my ability to see the dead a secret from everyone, including Ethan. I had been afraid of being put in an institution, afraid of the way people would look at me. I could only watch the dead, never speak to them. But tonight, the silence in the room felt too heavy to bear. Slowly, gently, I slid out from under the living Ethan's arm. I slipped out of bed, careful not to wake him, and walked over to the corner of the room. I sat down on the cold floor directly across from the ghost. The ghost looked up, his pale eyes widening in surprise as I met his gaze. I can see you, I whispered, keeping my voice so low it was barely a breath. I've always been able to see them. I've always been able to see you. The ghost's lips parted, but no sound came out. He reached out a hand, his pale, shimmering fingers hovering over mine. I could feel a faint, icy chill radiating from him, like the draft from a winter window. Why did you do it, Ethan? I whispered, tears pooling in my eyes. Why didn't you tell me you were sick? Did you really think leaving me with a machine, a ghost of yourself, would make it easier? The ghost looked at the bed where his physical copy lay, sleeping. Then he looked back at me. He slowly raised his hand and pressed it against his own chest, then pointed to me and finally to the sleeping Ethan. He didn't have to speak. I understood. He had loved me so much that he couldn't bear the thought of my world collapsing. He had wanted to leave a piece of himself behind to hold me, to comfort me, to make sure I wouldn't have to face the cold, empty house alone. But in doing so, he had trapped himself. His soul couldn't cross over because his mind, his memories were still active in the construct he was forced to watch. His own copy lived the life he had lost. I'm sorry, I sobbed, silently burying my face in my hands. I'm so sorry I didn't save you. A faint, cold sensation brushed against my hair. I looked up. The ghost was kneeling in front of me, his translucent hand resting gently on my head, ruffling my hair just the way he used to do when we were kids. His expression was incredibly gentle, devoid of any anger or jealousy. He didn't regret what he had done. Even now, trapped in this liminal space, his only concern was my grief. The next morning, the phone rang. It was 8 o'clock a.m. Ethan, the living one, groaned and reached for the nightstand, picking up the phone. Hello, I sat up in bed, my heart stopping. I knew who was calling. It was the hospital. It was Vance. Ethan listened to the phone for a long moment. His face slowly paled, and the hand holding the phone began to shake. I. See. Thank you, Dr. Vance. I'll be there soon. He hung up the phone and sat on the edge of the bed, his head in his hands. Ethan? I called out softly, crawling over to him, resting my hand on his back. What is it? He turned to me, his eyes wide with a sudden, terrifying confusion. Emma, Vance said he said. There was an accident at the lab. He said, my body, no, that doesn't make sense. He said they had to turn off the machines. He grabbed his head, groaning in pain. Why does my head hurt so much, Emma? Why can't I remember what I did yesterday? I remember packing your bags, but I don't remember what I did after you left. The degradation had begun the moment the hospital prepared to disconnect the original Ethan's physical body from life support. The quantum link was starting to sever. The construct's brain was beginning to misfire. The memories starting to leak away like water through clenched fingers. It's okay, I said, wrapping my arms around him, pulling his head to my chest. It's okay, Ethan. Don't try to think about it. Just breathe. I feel so cold, Emma, he whispered, his voice trembling. Why is it so cold? I looked toward the bedroom door. The ghost of the real Ethan was standing there. He looked more solid now, the gray pallor of his skin softening into a warm, gentle light. He was looking at the living Ethan with the expression of deep, solemn understanding. The physical Ethan in the hospital was gone. They had turned off the machines. Let's go for a walk, I whispered to the living Ethan, my heart breaking into a million pieces. Just you and me, like we used to. Okay, he murmured, his voice sounding younger, more fragile. A walk. I like that. We walked to the park near our house, the same park where we had played as children, where he had first told me he loved me under the shade of a massive, ancient oak tree. Ethan's steps were slow and hesitant. He held my hand, but his grip was losing its strength. Every few minutes, he would stop and look around, a look of profound confusion on his face, as if he couldn't quite remember where we were. Emma, he said suddenly, stopping under the oak tree. Where are we? We're at the park, Ethan, I said, my voice thick with unshed tears. The oak tree. Do you remember? The oak tree. He whispered, his eyes scanning the branches. I remember a girl. She was wearing a yellow dress. She fell from the swing and I gave her my ice cream to make her stop crying. That was me. I smiled, the tears finally spilling over. I was 8. You gave me your chocolate ice cream and it melted all over my hands. Yes. He smiled, a brief flash of the old, bright Ethan returning to his eyes. It melted, but you stopped crying. He looked at his own hands, which were starting to look slightly pale, his fingers trembling. Emma, I think I'm going to sleep soon. I'm so tired. No, sweetheart, I said, guiding him to sit down on the bench under the tree. I pulled him close, letting him rest his head on my shoulder. You can sleep. I'll be right here. You won't be lonely? He asked, his voice barely a whisper. Never, I said. You've taken such good care of me. You've loved me so much. It's okay to rest now. You don't have to carry me anymore. He closed his eyes, his breathing slowing down, becoming shallower and shallower. I looked up, standing just a few feet away, bathed in the soft, golden afternoon light, filtering through the leaves of the oak tree was the ghost of the real Ethan. He was no longer pale or gray. He looked exactly as he had on the day of our wedding, vibrant, happy, and whole. He stood there, his hand reached out toward the bench. The living Ethan beside me took one last soft breath. His body relaxed, his head resting heavily against my shoulder. The warmth in his hand slowly faded, replaced by the natural chill of a body that had ceased to function as the construct peacefully shut down. A soft, shimmering light rose from his chest. The light drifted through the air, floating toward the ghost of the real Ethan. The ghost reached out and caught the light, absorbing it into his chest. His eyes flashed with a sudden brilliant clarity. All the memories, all the love, all the pieces of his soul that he had mapped into the machine were finally returned to him. He was whole again. The ghost of my husband took a step toward me. He couldn't touch me physically, but as he leaned down and pressed his forehead against mine, I felt a wave of profound, unconditional warmth wash over me. It was a feeling deeper than skin, a connection of the soul that defied death itself. Thank you. His voice echoed in my mind, clear and beautiful. Thank you for seeing me. I will always see you, Ethan. I whispered into the quiet afternoon air. He smiled, a bright, beautiful smile that I knew would carry me through the lonely years ahead. He took a step back, his form slowly beginning to dissolve into the golden sunlight, fading away into a peaceful, gentle mist. I sat on the park bench for a long time, holding the quiet, empty shell of the construct, looking at the spot where my husband's soul had finally found his peace. The grief was there, heavy and sharp, but for the first time in years, the coldness in my heart was gone. I reached out and touched the necklace around my neck, the words waiting for you cold against my skin. I was no longer afraid of the dark because I knew that love, real love, was the one thing that never truly dies.